And just to provide some context, call to for the recording started it at 7:31. This is a public hearing to receive comments on ordinance 2024-OR-03, residential district automated speed monitoring. And this legislation is expanding our speed monitoring program, not in, at least in principle, in space. Actually, it does expand it. It's both in space and time. So we will be covering more of the town, because currently we have to be close to a school in order to have the district. And I think most of the town meets that, but is not necessarily been declared to be a speed enforcement area. And then we are going to be also extending it from being only during nominal school hours to being 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And this is as part of our enhanced focus on pedestrian and bicycle safety. And we just want to make sure that people are obeying the speed limits whenever they are within the town limits of the town. We are not actually planning, have no plans at this time to move any of the cameras, add any new cameras or anything like that, but we'll have that flexibility upon going through a particular process. And Mr. Town Manager, is this hearing one of the requirements of the state law to have a hearing with public comment before we can adopt the legislation?
Our attorney advised us to have this. I believe it is a requirement, sir.
Okay. And with that, are there any members of the public who would like to comment on ordinance 2024-OR-03, residential district automatic speed monitoring? I'm not seeing any microphones go unmuted.
Actually, I would love to comment on that.
Please do.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a resident here in Riverdale. So I apologize because I'm just now joining, but I went to a hearing several weeks ago after the tragic accident in front of the school here in Riverdale Park. And I am highly in favor of automated speed monitoring. I think that it would change the behaviors of drivers over time. I live near Taylor Road and people speed there frequently. People actually frequently run stop signs. And my neighbor right next door to me, I included this in the testimony in that hearing, that I'm not going to quickly be able to say the level of government that hearing, I guess that was the county when they were giving us permission to enforce speeding with automated systems. But my neighbor right next door to me, she has a 1-year-old. When she was pregnant, she got broadsided by someone speeding down Riverdale or River Road here. And so it seems like it's kind of an epidemic in this area. And I think that it would change people's behaviors. So I'm definitely in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hancock. Appreciate your comments. Are there any additional comments on this proposed legislation?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember Kellogg, usually we reserve these comments for members of the public. This is a public hearing, but
Okay. Let me reserve it.
you'll have an opportunity to discuss it at length in the work session later this evening. So,
Okay, thank you, sir.
any additional public comments? Mr. McAllister, your microphone is unmuted. Do you want to make a comment this evening?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I was looking for how I could raise my hand. I'm not familiar with Zoom. So just want to say, obviously, in support of this resolution or ordinance, a long time coming for the town. So we appreciate the town's effort moving these safety ordinances forward. I know a lot of people have concerns about just general speeding in the town. So this is great to see. Appreciate everyone's support.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McAllister. Appreciate that. Ms. Hancock, I don't see any other microphones open or hands up at this time. I'll just mention that the state I can't count right now, I guess about 6 or 7 weeks ago, pass new legislation for automated enforcement of stop signs. And it's only allowed in Prince George's County at this time. And we'll be investigating that. I'm not sure how quickly we'll have those up, but I've been working to try to get that legislation passed for many years. It was sponsored by our delegate, Ann Healy, and I was very pleased that it went through this time. So we look forward to working with that new legislation. Are there any additional public comments on ordinance, where the number go 2024-OR-03? Members of the public? Okay, we promised to have a 15-minute public hearing, so I will keep the hearing open for another 7 or 8 minutes, and then we can move on to the special legislative meeting. And if any new people join the meeting, then I will recognize and let them repeat the purpose of the hearing and see if they're interested in making comments.
Can I ask a question about something that's not related to this?
I think you can, given that we have nothing else to
Okay.
talk about right now.
Well, it was my understanding that there would be a ceasefire resolution brought to the council this evening, which is part of the reason why I was encouraged to join as a group of neighbors in District 4. Is that going to be coming up this evening, or is that in a different?
So we have a special legislative meeting, and there is not such a motion under legislative action items. It may be that a council member is planning to introduce it under new business.
I see.
And I don't believe we have the same on the work session. No, we don't. So this is the first I've heard of it. So if somebody's going to be doing it, they could bring it up under new business.
Got it.
Noted,
Yeah.
noted. Are any of the members present here planning to introduce this evening? Councilmember Smith, you're unmuted.
I was just gonna, he can speak for himself, but I believe Councilmember Lingua mentioned bringing that up in this meeting during our last meeting.
Okay.
If he's not planning on that or isn't prepared for it this evening, then given the number of people here, I'm certainly willing to bring that up, but I do want to reserve that for the member from Ward 4 or Ward 3. As I know he had spoke of it before.
Okay. Councilmember Lingua.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that's right. I did bring it up last meeting because I had received a letter, and since then, there have been 2 additional letters addressed to the entire council. So I think it would be prudent for us to discuss this under new business during the work session.
During the work session. Okay.
And Ben, I think one of the things we should be considering is about a resolution at the June meeting. And I think this would be a good thing for residents to have input on, being the nature and complexity of the issue. That this is something where resident input would be very welcome.
Okay. Well, as I said, I was not aware of this specific item coming up, but it can come up under new business. And if there is a significant interest from the public, we could even move it higher up on the agenda in the work session in order to.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, I think being this has already been brought up, it would be coming under unfinished business.
Yes, that's a good point. But nevertheless, we can discuss it. We can move it up on the work session in order to let residents speak earlier.
Sure, fine by me.
Okay, we have, according to my clock, we have about 4 minutes left. We're having a public hearing on ordinance 2024-OR-03 regarding residential district automated speed monitoring. This is something that was introduced at the May 6th meeting. And we are required by state law to have a public hearing when adopting such resolution, such an ordinance or changes to an ordinance to introduce this program. And we are having this hearing to receive public feedback. And so any members of the public who may have missed this introduction earlier, who wish to speak on this, please raise your hand or unmute, and I'll recognize you just to provide your comments on this legislation. Ms. Cronk, go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Council. Heather Cronk on 46th Avenue. I did have a question about, I noticed that the change to the ordinance was the introduction of the phrase highways. And I was curious whether either the Councilmember Ifiak, who introduced it, or any of the other council members had intentions or expectations on which highways would be included. I'm not asking for like where exactly there are going to be cameras, but just kind of trying to get a sense for how widespread this is intended to be, and which kinds of highways it would include.
Mr. Town Manager, I see you're unmuted. I'm going to allow you to answer the question since I'm going to save a little bit of my energy for the rest of the meeting. So go ahead.
Yes, I believe the reference is simply from the Maryland Transportation article, and that's going to refer to a highway as a roadway. Chief, if I have that wrong, let me know. But I believe it's just the state uses the term highway, and so that would be any town roads. It would be any roads within the confines of the town. So that could be east-west highway. It could be a state-owned road. Right now, we don't have any county-owned roads in town. But there are no plans to expand the locations at this point. And if that were to be proposed in the future, the council would have to act on that through an amendment to an ordinance to add locations.
Okay, Mr. Town Manager, from reading the legislation, then 64BE introduces the speed monitoring systems as it adds language on highways and residential districts with a maximum posted speed limit of 35 miles per hour.
Yes.
I think that's what Ms. Cronk was referring to. So that would apply to my knowledge, and this is I'm guessing at this a little bit. I think that would mostly apply to East-West Highway, the 4800 block of East-West Highway. Actually 45 and 46 perhaps also. So anywhere there's residential right against East-West Highway, then that would be a residential district, and with that this would allow us to have automated enforcement in those zones. There are a few other places that have residential on state highways. I think there's a little section of Kenilworth that has a few houses that are residential. And I believe there are a few on Baltimore Avenue. Trying to think, are there any south of East-West Highway? I know there's one or two that are north of East-West Highway that are right against Baltimore Avenue. So those areas would potentially be locations for having speed monitoring systems. Go ahead, Ms. Cronk.
Yeah, thank you. That's actually why I was asking for a clarification, because we live 2 houses away from East-West Highway, which is actually a really troublesome spot, especially our section of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I may be outing myself here. I don't think the speed limit is 35. Maybe it is. and-
It is.
Okay, great. I've been speeding this whole time then. So I definitely am outing myself. So I was curious, to what extent that would include some of the places where it seems like it's troublesome, where like adding police on the roads would be unhelpful. I am concerned about putting, essentially kind of RoboCops on streets, kind of without rhyme or reason. So I was kind of trying to understand what the rhyme or reason was to selecting some roads rather than others.
Right, and the essence of this legislation is that we currently only enforce it in school districts. And that's a pretty expansive definition. So I think there may only be a few scraps of street in town that are not within one, but not all of them have been declared by the council to be school districts requiring speed enforcement. And so the locations of the cameras have to be included one by one. And this would extend extended to cover all streets. I think that is the chief on with us this
Yes.
evening? So my memory, yes, Chief Turner. So I believe the requirement is that a house be within 200 feet of the street. Maybe it's 100 feet of the street in order to have a residential district. Is that correct, Chief Turner?
That's correct. I believe it's 200 feet.
Okay. And so just thinking about the section of East West Highway near your house, Ms. Kronk, then I think that essentially everything from sort of maybe the Baltimore Avenue side of the bridge, but maybe the whole bridge all the way to Baltimore Avenue, almost all of that would be included in the residential district because of the residential homes that are right on East West Highway on the north side there. Okay, are there additional questions and comments on this legislation? Okay, seeing no other unmuted microphones or hands raised, then I will close this public hearing at 7:48 p.m. And we will immediately move. Give me just a moment to get my agenda in the right place. Immediately move into special legislative meeting called order at 7:40, I'll say 7:49 p.m. Members of the council and members of the council currently present include Councilmember Lingua, Councilmember Callon, Councilmember Inyang, Councilmember Smith. Are there any amendments required to the agenda presented? And please let us know also if you have any conflicts of interest for any items on the agenda. I will take silence to indicate.
Actually, Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I know we had talked about doing this in the work session, but being that we have an opportunity, being that we have a section of this meeting of unfinished business, taking up the matter about a resolution calling for a ceasefire, if we wanted to take care of that during unfinished business here as opposed to the work session.
okay, we can do that. And should the council members present decide to issue such a letter, then that could actually happen quickly. So let's go ahead
An
and
opportunity, yes.
so I will provisionally add that and the council can decide whether after a motion to approve, whether to adopt the agenda as amended. Are any other changes required to this evening's special legislative meeting agenda? Okay, may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as amended to include under unfinished business, a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in, I believe, the Gaza Strip?
Mr.
I
Mayor,
move the motion. Oh,
Mr. Mayor, point of clarification, please.
Yes.
My thought was to bring it up for discussion. If a resolution comes out of that, fine.
Okay, so well, we don't have to adopt it, but we need to put a discussion there of what we're going to do. So just discussion. So this would be a letter. Is that correct? So not a resolution, just a letter calling for an immediate ceasefire? Would that be a better description of what you'd like under unfinished business?
Discussion as to town's position on whether or not to send a letter calling for immediate ceasefire in the Gaza Strip.
Okay, I'll.
So I think that's where we're at right now. I know we've had letters asking us to bring this up and to do this.
Okay.
I think
well,
this is also something that we need to have a discussion
Okay.
as a body and then go from there and decide how we want to move forward or not on a letter calling for a ceasefire.
Okay. So with that clarification, may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Smith, seconded by Councilmember Lingua. Is there any discussion of the motion to approve the agenda? Council discussion. Are there any public comments on the motion to approve the agenda as amended? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Foe does not appear to be present. Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Inyang,
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia does not appear to be present. Councilmember Kalan.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 4-0. That brings us to the presentation. Mr. Fike is present. So we'll be swearing in Mr. Fike as chair of the Board of Code Appeals. Mr. Fike, can you I successfully did not log out myself. So Mr. Fike, there you are, and you're unmuted. Are you ready to go?
If you can hear me, I am.
Okay. Just so I know, would you prefer to swear or affirm this oath?
That's no difference, I guess.
Makes no difference. If it makes no difference, I'm going to do affirm, since that's sort of the typically the less controversial one. So please raise your hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Christopher Fike,
Do affirm
do affirm
that I will diligently and honestly
I will diligently and honestly
administer the affairs
administer the affairs
of the Board of Code Appeals
of the Board of Code Appeals
for the town of Riverdale Park,
of the town of Riverdale Park,
in accordance with Chapter 56
in accordance with Chapter 56
of the Riverdale Park Town Code,
of the Riverdale Park Town Code,
and that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
and that I will be faithful
that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of Maryland,
to the state of Maryland,
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and support the Constitution and the laws thereof,
and that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment,
that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office
execute the office
of Chair of the Board of Code Appeals
of the Chair of the Board of Code Appeals
for the town of Riverdale Park,
for the town of Riverdale Park,
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
Congratulations, you are now the Chair of the Board of Code Appeals, and I will, I guess, Director Barnes will get this to you, and then it will come to me and sign it, and everything will be official. So thank you very much, Mr. Fike, for volunteering to take this this duty on. we need the Board of Code Appeals, and I appreciate you stepping up for this.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, public comments. Are there any public comments? Typically, this is for non-agenda items, but we have a short agenda, so anyone have any comments?
Mr. Mayor, are comments about the new business allowed right now, or do you want to wait until the new business has actually been proposed?
It would be best to wait until we get to the new business, but you will have an opportunity to speak at that time. Abby Kay gave a thumbs up in indicating that she understood. Okay, let's move on to the legislative action item. We have a single legislative action item, and I need a motion to adopt ordinance 2024-OR-02 regarding the fiscal year 2025 budget and tax rates. May I please have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 2024-OR-02. An ordinance concerning the FY 2025 budget and tax rates.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingua. Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Second by Councilmember Kellon. So motion by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Kellon. Councilmember Lingua, would you like to discuss the ordinance, discuss your motion?
Other than the fact that it's been a very challenging budget to put together, in the sense that there are many things that we're trying to meet in the next fiscal year. And I hope that we find in the next fiscal year that there's not been bitten off more than we were able to accomplish and get done. I hope we're going to be able to do that. I know there are a lot of worthy efforts, as is reflected both in our general budget as well as our capital improvement projects budget. I appreciate the efforts of members of the council, their attendance at meetings, and especially appreciate the efforts of staff for their presentations over the past 5 months, almost 6 months, regarding budget projections and what challenges they were seeing in putting together this budget, as well as participation of residents in town and their input regarding the formation of this budget.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingua. Appreciate those comments. Are there any council comments on the motion to adopt ordinance 2024-OR-02?
Mr. Mayor, as previously discussed, I have a couple of amendments to offer, but I do want to make sure any other members of the council have anything and want to weigh in here, get that opportunity before going down that road.
Okay. Any council members, any other items, or are we ready to hear Councilmember Smith's proposed amendments? It's quiet enough that I think we can move to your amendments. Go ahead, Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer an amendment that all funding in the FY 2025 budget for automated traffic enforcement be reprogrammed for pedestrian and bike safety infrastructure, and to balance the budget in light of any changes there.
Is there a second to the motion to amend the budget in this way?
Second, for the sake of discussion.
Motion by Councilmember Smith, recorded fortunately, because I don't know that I can repeat it, but to amend the the budget to direct that all funds collected from automated traffic be put into the bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. Is that a reasonable summary, Councilmember Smith? And
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and for the budget to be balanced in light of any changes there.
I was going to get to that, but I wanted to make sure I got the first part correct before I got to the second part. Second part was easy.
There we go.
Okay, motion made by Councilmember Smith, seconded by Councilmember Lingua. Is there a discussion of this motion to amend?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, if I could ask my colleague from Ward 1, in terms of his amendment, I can see where he wants to see funds directed that way. If he could provide some clarification on that second part regarding balancing the budget thereof. Is that in regarding the money being put towards bicycle and pedestrian safety?
That was thank you, my colleague from Ward 3. That was recommended to me to add, as there would likely be revenue implications, or projected that there would be revenue implications if that funding was redirected away from automated enforcement. And being that we have a requirement to have a balanced budget, that would be necessary.
Okay. Okay. So in a sense, use the funds in a way for the dual purposes of further pedestrian and bicycle safety improvements within town, and in doing so, making sure that we still maintain a balanced budget as those expenditures would require.
Correct. And I believe it or not, have remarks speaking to all of those things. If we're at the time appropriate for that.
Oh, I am all ears. I hope other folks
The
are.
maker of the motion traditionally may take up to 10 minutes to present remarks.
Oh, I won't take that long.
Oh, well, go ahead and give it a good go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, my colleagues, particularly my colleague from the Finance Committee, the Finance Chair, for agreeing to have this discussion. I am not under any delusions of the fate of this, but as I've said previously, I believe that we, as other municipalities have, will come to regret our reliance and increasing our reliance on automated enforcement that other governments have found is not safe and doesn't work. And I'm bringing this up today because I don't want that realization to be the first time that we've talked about alternatives. Again, thank you to the council for engaging in the discussion. I recognize I'm in the minority on this. And I want to be clear that we're good people. We can evaluate an issue and come to different conclusions. And I hope we can at least start a conversation that we continue over coming budget cycles as we address other issues that face the town. According to a 2021 article in the Berkeley Journal of Criminal Law, 18 states and 36 cities have explicitly banned red light and speed cameras. Automated enforcement has also failed at the ballot box. Red light and indoor speed cameras were voted down in 39 to 43 local initiatives where the initiative appeared as a referendum. Again, according to that 2021 article in the Berkeley Journal of Criminal Law. Other studies have repeatedly found that automated traffic enforcement simply doesn't work. In fact, the data that does exist strongly suggests that if anything, automated enforcement makes streets less safe and not more. And a study conducted by scholars from Case Western Reserve University and the University of Arizona, researchers found, quote, no evidence that cameras improve public safety. They don't reduce the total number of vehicle accidents, the total number of individuals injured in accidents, or the total number of incapacitating injuries that involve ambulance transport to a hospital. 2013 study from the Association for the Advancement of Automobile Medicine found that the placement or removal of speed cameras, quote, did not independently affect the incidence of motor vehicle collisions. 2015 study on speed cameras out of the UK found that the number of hard stops triple or increased all the way up to 11 times when the car was close to the cameras, resulting in a potentially dangerous situation of panic braking, especially for out-of-town drivers who would not be watching for cars suddenly slowing for the cameras. Those are just a few studies that I found. I found lots more that I'm happy to share, but again, want to be expedient here. And as I've frequently pointed out, has been acknowledged by others, including the town manager, we have zero way of understanding the effectiveness of this cameras. All we can know is how many people speed in a precise location at a time when a camera is active. Can't know if cameras change behaviors to reduce speeding. Can't know if drivers are simply lowering their speeds and then resuming excessive speed immediately after the camera. And we can't know if they are taking alternative routes to avoid cameras and shifting reckless driving away from highways to residential streets. And we can't know if drivers are driving even more recklessly in other areas to compensate for lost speed near cameras. There's also significant concern in terms of privacy with the for-profit companies that collect the data needed to administer these programs. In 2019, the ACLU of Northern California revealed that Immigrations and Customs Enforcement had established a $6.1 million contract with Vigilant Solutions, an automated enforcement company to access their database with over 50 billion data points from over 80 local law enforcement agencies in over a dozen states. To be clear, I'm not sure if this is the particular company that we do have a contract with or are looking to contract with, but this is a fairly standard practice in the world of for-profit automated enforcement. Agencies like ICE can not only search these databases, but also upload hot lists or list of flag license plates, including individuals with low-level misdemeanors or traffic offenses. If one of these systems automate their license or identify their license, it will automatically notify police, allowing them to pinpoint the location and travel patterns of non-consenting citizens, as well as undocumented immigrants. These systems also create perverse incentives. We are considering deriving up to 10% of our budget from a program that even those in support of it acknowledges the impossibility of measuring its effectiveness. What happens if, as I believe we come to recognize that these cameras primarily benefit shareholders of the for-profit companies we contract to operate them? These companies, by the way, cannot be profitable if their technology reduces the occurrence of the act they profit from. We will face a choice between continuing to use a service that doesn't work, puts the privacy of our residents at risk, and may even make our streets more dangerous, or reducing our costs by 10% across the board in a town where we know our primary expenditure is compensating our staff. Automated enforcement is simply not a serious response to road safety. One thing that research makes clear is that the frequency of speeding or disobeying traffic signals is an issue of design and engineering, not enforcement and compliance. So I would encourage us as a body to think about the problem in that context. Let's spend our time discussing things that we know work, designing and redesigning our infrastructure for the safety of all, not just the convenience of motorists. That involves things like narrowing streets, creating one-ways, limiting commercial traffic, closing some streets to vehicles, investing in pedestrian or incentivizing pedestrian and bike use, and other creative solutions that make streets safer. So as mentioned before, I did want to offer this amendment in a way that least disrupts our process and takes up our time. I hope I have done that in my less than 10 minutes here. And that concludes my remarks on the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and colleagues.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Is there additional council discussion of this motion to amend the budget as described earlier? Councilmember Lingua? Yang? I see you're both unmuted.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to hear from my colleague from Ward 4 first before I chime in a second time.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Yang, go ahead.
I appreciate the council member from Ward 1 standing on his convictions and fulfilling what he mentioned he will do and bringing this conversation, allowing this conversation to happen. My question is just around what the impact would be in terms of like the first part of sort of redirecting all funds that are gained from the speed enforcement cameras to road infrastructure. I believe that was already sort of like, we've talked about that being the purpose, but it'd be great if maybe staff can give clarification in terms of, is there a difference of, let's say, hey, it was going to be originally $10,000, but now it's going to be some additional amount. Like, do we know what the difference is in terms of like what the implications are for 100% of the funds going towards sort of road improvement, infrastructure safety?
Miss. Is that a question for the town manager, Mr. Inyon? I believe he might be able to.
Yes, or town staff, or whoever is qualified to answer.
Mr. Town Manager?
Yes, Mr. Jones, do you have that number for me?
Yeah, I just emailed that to you right now.
Okay. With your indulgence, Mr. Mayor.
Of course.
So, in response to the question, if we were to move all automated enforcement to capital improvement, the net revenue for speed cameras is projected to be in fiscal 25, $1,010,000. The red light automated enforcement, which is something new to the town, is anticipated or projected, I should say, to be $342,000. So you're 1.35 in terms of the revenue that would be diverted to CIP. We would have to then increase revenues in the operating budget or decrease expenditures in the operating budget. One of the two. If you were to increase the revenues, you would be looking at an additional 13.5 cent increase in real property tax. That would be in addition to the proposed increase. Or you would be looking at reducing expenditures by that 1.3. And off the top of my head, the only way you're going to do that is to reduce staff by anywhere from 10 to 13 positions. I'm unaware of any other way to address that.
Thank you. So essentially, the current projected $1.35 million revenue that the cameras is all going towards the operating budget.
Yes, it's to offset the police department's operating cost.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Town Manager, just as a clarifying point, if we are not spending it on the police department salaries, we might have to give some of that directly to the state. Is that correct? And would go out of our budget entirely?
Well, actually, we can use it for public safety CIP related.
Okay.
So the funds can be used there. We would have to run a new calculation. I'm not sure if the state views the use of it in CIP differently. But on the operating side, if revenues exceed 10% of the budget, then we would have to pay back the state.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Smith, you have a second comment on this amendment?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just note that $1.3 million is a projection. It's not real. Other governments, municipalities, and states have found that the revenue projections around these programs fell woefully short, and in some cases they even end up owing money to the vendor versus taking in revenue. I'm not sure, Mr. Town Manager, if that 1.3 figure includes if that net includes the fees that we are paying to the vendors that we have to pay per lookup for citations issued. There are other solutions to fill that gap, I believe. I think there are a wealth of research sources out there that we could identify for grant funding for programs around pedestrian and cyclist safety. That isn't to, of course, I know that the staff has worked very hard on this budget and has found money everywhere they know to look. I certainly do not mean to say that that effort wasn't strong enough, but there are sources out there I would also add that we need the money isn't a good idea to do a thing that it's not a good reason to do a thing that doesn't work and potentially actually makes our streets more dangerous. So that's one the primary reason I wanted to bring this up today, even though I know the likely fate of it is that exploring those creative solutions, finding other avenues to increase our safety, things like that will take time, take debate, and take discussion. And so even if it's not likely that happens now, I think it's important we start those discussions now so that we have a plan when, as I believe will happen, we have to stop considering that amount of money anyway because the program doesn't work and we're not bringing in the amount of revenue that has been promised. So I think we're going to have to deal with that figure one way or another. And I think it's important we start talking about it now, even if the issue isn't an immediate one at the moment.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Is there additional council discussion of this motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Callan, go ahead.
I'm asking a question. I don't know if I can direct it to you or to the town manager. Which one?
You can direct it to either of us. So why don't you, if it's something the town manager is likely to answer, then go ahead and direct it to him. The rules of order say that everything between members is supposed to be directed at me, but go ahead and ask the town manager. I think that's okay.
All right. The question I have several questions I'm going to ask. This red light camera and speed camera, did they save life or is it money making?
I believe that's the debate that the council is engaged in currently, sir.
Engage on what?
I think that's the debate that is
So
occurring among the council.
Mr. Town Manager, if I might jump in right now. So our colleague from Ward 1, in his remarks, has stated that it is his opinion, and he cited research that the effectiveness of these at saving lives is not known. And I have not received the full bibliography that he was working from, but that is his statement. He has also asserted that other municipalities have found it to not be something that makes money, that provides revenues that can be used. And I think we can say, looking at the last, certainly the last 6 or 8 years, that has been true for the town of Riverdale Park, that we have realized net revenues over expenses for this program. And I can also tell you from history that an earlier red light camera program, we ended up in the exact situation that our colleague from the first ward described, that towards the end of the program, there were many fewer people running red lights when it started out. Then it was an enormous revenue source. There were many people running them. And over the course of time, people stopped running the red lights, and at least our red lights, at least the red lights that had cameras on them. And the terms of the contract, it ended up being a draw on the budget for a period of time before the program was terminated. So does that answer your question, council member?
Yeah, you know why I asked this question?
Why?
I asked this question because you see this speed camera and the red light camera, right? I don't mean the regular red lights that can stop drivers, but the camera that snap, red light camera that snap, and the speed camera that they install on the side of the road. Mr. Mayor, I see no reason why these cameras are there, because some people, they disobey this camera and go and get an accident. And they kill people. Sometimes they damage properties. Can this camera pay for these people's life? No. The only thing, unless they compensate. So, you see, whenever people know there is a red camera there and speed camera, In fact, they become more adamant, particularly when they're drunk. They don't check. So that's why I said this red camera and speed camera is for money making or is for saving life and property. That's why I asked this question. Because I see no reason. People don't even obey this speed camera or red light camera that snap their cars. Instead, when it causes an accident, they go and pay for the camera, their insurance take over. So let's find a way when you can be able to save people's life and property on the roads. This camera is for the rich men. In fact, the rich people, they don't respect the cameras because they have money. Only the poor people, and not all the poor people. You see, so let's find a way. How can I agree with the Ward 1 speaker? I agree with him because if you look, this camera is money making. Those who are installing this camera, they beg the citizens are disgusted. They become disgruntled because camera is everywhere. I didn't offend anybody. It's my own opinion. I didn't offend anybody, but it's my own opinion. Camera is everywhere. Everywhere people are grumbling about this camera. So let's find a way how can save the life of the citizens and their properties. And before there was no camera, speed camera, nothing. Everything was going smooth. That's why I said it's for money making or is for save life and property. That's why I asked this question. Because the time where we were driving here in 1998, there was no camera, only the red light. That when you see the red light, you stop. When the red light change, you go. But then the place is safe. So now, this is my own take. Is it for money making? Or is it going to save the life of the people and property? This is my take. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Inyang, you have a comment?
Yeah, I'll be quick. Appreciate the time. I think personally feel like we have data that we know that the amount of people who are speeding on times when the cameras are not on is actually higher than the times the cameras are on, right? And so I don't necessarily know if the conversation of the merits of how do you get people wanting to speed. It's an unfortunate reality that we live in. I don't necessarily see removing cameras as making things safer. I appreciate the statistics that were mentioned, but I'm not necessarily convinced by that. But I do like the idea of, are there ways that we can think about improving the infrastructure to make roads even more safer? I think of the bike lanes that are put on River Tech Court as a way to sort of hopefully slow and reduce the speed diet of that road. And if there are other opportunities to do that, I think as a town, we can continue to look forward to that. I know the Walk, Bike, Drive Safety Initiative, which is soon to be kicked off, this will be sort of a topic of discussion for them as well. But I'm not in support of the motion that's currently in discussion, mainly for I think the ramifications for if the $1.35 million hole in the operating budget that would cause. And so just want to put that out there as my stance.
Thank you, Councilmember Inyang. Any additional council comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Lingua was first, I believe. You've only spoken once. Is that correct, Councilmember Lingua?
that is correct, Mr. Mayor. That is correct. And this would be round 2.
Okay.
Okay. Number of points to touch on here. And I'm trying to do them in order, but it might get a little jumbled. Regarding the speed cameras that we have in town. Being I was around when this was being considered and enacted, and what I've seen over the years in terms of what has come in and our approach as a municipality on terms of estimations over the years, so that we would not get caught in a situation that we did with the red light cameras of a previous program under previous administrations. We've found, I think staff has been very good at doing that in terms of it providing best estimations, so as not to have that issue. As for concept of this being just a purely revenue generating mechanism, I disagree with that notion. I know plenty of families who appreciate the fact that we have speed cameras there at that crossing at East-West Highway, as well as the speed cameras down along Riverdale Road around the elementary school, which what the legislation was originally written for, to help provide a safer area around those schools. The fact that people have a marginal propensity to press down with their right foot and want to demonstrate their limitless potential to not exercise some intelligence in slowing down, that's their choice. I don't agree with that choice. I think it's a dangerous choice. And I hope eventually over time, after a number of tickets, they reconsider. I know my own personal experience going to and from work each day. I currently go through 3 areas where there are speed cameras. 1 in town, 2 in College Park. There used to be a 4th right near the Prince George's County border, where there's a special needs school there where it was 35 miles an hour. And yes, folks slowed down there to 35 miles an hour. That camera has since disappeared. And what I've noticed over the past months is now everything is back up above 35 miles an hour. It's actually closer now to 50. And it is my hope that the county does get a camera back over in that area, because it does modify behavior. Regarding the amendment that is being offered by my colleague from the First Ward, I think there's an idea in there. I think there's an idea that could be tried out there, being that we have a resolution for stop sign enforcement. I could see something where revenues generated from that program get directed that way as a sort of I don't want to use the term beta, but as essentially as a pilot program to see how that directing those funds into that under the structure and see how that would work. I don't see that as in a way affecting what we're doing with our safe school programs with the cameras that we have now, or with the stoplight cameras. And it gives us something that would be much more manageable budget-wise and monitoring-wise in terms of providing additional revenues towards our CIP. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingua. Councilmember Smith, the rules of order say that each member gets two speeches of up to 10 minutes each, without dispensation from the council for additional. Does anyone wish to make such a motion to grant Councilmember Smith an additional speech?
Mr. Mayor, if it helps, all I have left to offer here is gratitude to my colleagues on the council. I'm not
Okay.
looking for a long debate anymore.
Okay, I'll let that small remark go by.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just again want to express my appreciation for the council for entertaining this discussion, particularly my colleague from the Third Ward for providing that crucial second so that we could have that debate. I think it demonstrates a level of maturity for this council that we are willing to hear discussions about varying ranges of ideas and be professional about it, even when they're ideas we do not agreeable. And I similarly appreciate the suggestion from the council member for the red light, or I'm sorry, stop sign camera revenue. And that's something I would also be inclined to support. So thank you again, Mr. Mayor, and to my colleagues on the council.
Okay. Are there any, I think everybody's on the council has already had their 2 speeches, 2.5 for Councilmember Smith. So are there any public comments on this amendment, purely on this amendment? Mr. Schmitz, go ahead. Your hand is up. You are muted, Mr. Schmitz, if you're speaking. You're still muted if you are speaking. At least for me, the mute and unmute is on the lower left-hand corner of the window. No, can't unmute. Okay. I saw several other people who appeared to be unmuting. Mr. McAllister, let's go to you next.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Brian McAllister, 4705 Tuckerman Street. I would be adamantly opposed to any amendments that would not allow the red light cameras or the speed enforcement cameras over here on Tuckerman Street. The speed camera that's been provided by the school, Riverdale Park, I'm sorry, College Park Academy, I believe it's called. Those cameras have made just an unsurmountable amount of change in this area. We had 2 people that had gotten hit on bikes and a dog that was hit. The dog was on Tuckerman Street. The 2 people that were hit on bikes were on River Tech and at the roundabout. Since the lights have went in, speeds have reduced drastically, especially in front of a school. So they are specifically in for positive change, especially around a school area. And that's where the original cameras were limited to. Allowing these cameras throughout the rest of town gives the town the effectiveness to go ahead and move those in areas where speeding has problems. So while I appreciate that Councilmember Smith cited a lot of data, I would love to read those studies and the bibliography of references, because it sounded like, if I did my quick math, that only about 1/3 of those studies were in municipalities and probably rural areas. But in the district and in Maryland and this region, predominantly speed enforcement cameras have been used. The fees associated with those, since my understanding of the fees is that the town does not receive those fees, that they actually go to schools. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mayor.
The town does receive revenue from the speed camera program, which is spent essentially exclusively on public safety programs.
Okay, so it is going back into the town. So I think what we're debating about, the life safety versus the fees, we're talking about life safety. How much is a life worth of somebody getting hit next to a school? It happens all the time around here in this region. I mean, Prince George's County has the highest amount of pedestrian and vehicular fatalities. So we're #1 in the state, but not for a good reason. So this county, and this town being located in this county, is a predominant carrier of those fatalities. So we should be doing anything we could to effectively mitigate or reduce. And I'm not saying that road diets or complete streets or any of those infrastructure changes are not also effective, but that is a much longer term program, and they are much more expensive. And what we need right now are real results to changes to reduce speeding throughout town. I've heard it from a number of my neighbors and residents in town. We just had a major fatality. We just went and asked the delegates at the state for this authority. We can use it as a town anywhere we want to, but I don't see the budget amendment helping us. and recognizing that there are some flaws in it, but this is a much bigger change that is needed in this town due to some of the issues that we're facing. So I think in terms of the last point I wanted to make is that the speed enforcement program, yes, may not be financially or may go into the red sometimes, but again, that's not what government's here to do. It may have to subsidize for safety, right? Putting a price on safety for town residents. And in terms of the fees, and I recognize that, people's driving habits may change. There's also the options to move these cameras around. I saw the amendments in the prior ordinance about posting signs. So as people's driving habits change, these speed enforcement devices can also change. So it can be a very variable and fluid program as well. So my wife couldn't be here. She's actually in class right now, but she also wanted to send her support for the speed enforcement program. So with that, we would be in support of keeping the program and against this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. McAllister. Mr. Schmitz, it looks like you have unmuted, so you want to try again?
Hopefully, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to speak against the amendment in favor of automated traffic safety measures. It seems that both red light cameras and speed cameras basically establish a fact. So number one, why would we have valuable police time and resources spent sitting in a patrol car waiting for someone to run a red light or exceed a speed limit? And secondly, seems to me there's no point in having those interactions between an officer and a driver when it is a fact-based question. I mean, we all know that can sometimes lead to tragic results. So I would oppose the amendment and urge adoption of automated traffic safety measures. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schmitz. I'm hoping that people show up in the participants list in the order you raised your hand. I think that's correct. So Valerie, please go ahead. You're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Valerie Hames on 48th Avenue. I want to echo what Mr. McAllister was saying, that I am in support of the cameras, and I'm in support to actually making it a little bit more fluid, because as he stated, that the behavior changes when the devices are stationary. As someone who has kids at College Park Academy, I have seen the change of behavior, but then what I've noticed is that when they are now on is that Rhode Island, where the stop signs are, no one stops. They don't stop at those stop signs once they come out of the circle. And so if we can have something fluid, it's not necessarily about getting revenue, but it would also enhance the safety and change the behavior townwide. And even though the speed cameras are on Taylor and East West Highway, I was involved in what could have been a potential horrific accident in November, right after the speed camera on Taylor Road, because someone jumped to the median. So I think that changing the whole behavior and making it fluid so that folks don't get used to where the locations are would enhance the overall safety of residents in town. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Haynes. Ms. Hancock, go ahead.
Hi, I'll try to be brief here because I spoke before during the hearing, but I guess I really appreciated what Councilmember Smith brought to the discussion, and I like the ideas that have been raised about looking more holistically at other ways of addressing safety. But I also really appreciate what the other residents have just said about how experiences, like real tangible experiences, are that driving cameras change behavior. And I'll just speak up and say that myself personally, since I moved to the DC area, there's places that I would drive frequently that I honestly was just not aware of the speed limit until I got the ticket in the mail, and then it changed my behavior. So that's very anecdotal. And then I also just want to echo the idea that moving the cameras around would be really, that seems like a sensible way of using those resources and keeping people on their toes and overall feeling like when I go to Riverdale Park, I need to watch myself rather than when I go to this intersection or whatever, I need to watch myself. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Hancock. Mr. Kaushik?
Hi, I'm Dr. Karthik Kaushik. I work at the University of Maryland Shock Trauma Center and have been researching traffic and traffic safety for over the past 10 years. I did not log in at the start of the discussion. I logged in around the time Mr. Smith, Council Member Smith, was presenting his bibliography. And honestly, I have not read all of those papers, but from my experience in this field, in this area at least, like other residents have chimed in, the speed cameras and the red light cameras are very effective, and they do a lot to improve safety on the roadways. We have the data today. I don't know when the studies Councilmember Smith referenced were published or were conducted, but now we have the data to identify if people change their behaviors, if there are heartbreaking events, if cameras cause all of those negative consequences. And so far, I have not seen any research that says that this becomes more prevalent when automated enforcement is introduced in an area. In fact, the county is conducting multiple studies to see how effective automated enforcements would be for various other corridors throughout the county, and all the results have so far indicated that they would be extremely effective in reducing or rather in improving safety and reducing crashes and fatalities. So if I may request a copy of the bibliography that Councilmember Smith referenced to, I would be happy to take a look at it and also supplement it with additional material that might have been published more recently and provide that to the council for review.
Thank you, Dr. Kaushik. It looks like Councilmember Smith has pasted the bibliography in the chat. If you send me an email, I'm going to save the chat. Well, you can save the chat yourself. I've saved the chat. If you send me an email, then I can send you those links.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that a lot.
Appreciate your comments, sir. Are there any additional public comments on this on this amendment? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to make just a few comments myself. I appreciate Councilmember Smith bringing this up. I have always had concerns about privacy and data, and some of the privacy practices he described of the data being released to other law enforcement agencies, I think is morally wrong. And I think that we should have programs in place to prevent that. I believe that we do have that the data is controlled within the state of Maryland, but I'm not certain of that. I saw some draft legislation that was looking to tighten that up even, but I don't know what the fate of that was during the most recent legislative session. In terms of proving the effectiveness of these, it's tough to do. It is. There's no question of that. The rate of crashes, and particularly of serious crashes or fatal crashes, is honestly quite low. I think that it's sort of a million plus miles of driving before you have a serious traffic accident, or maybe even more. Maybe that's just accident, and that even you have to go even further in order to get to a serious accident. And so even with 100,000 people driving their cars through town each day, it'd be hard to collect all the data to show that for the people who drove through town, that they had a lower serious traffic rate. But it's possible. There's enough tools in place that could possibly be done now. Perhaps not. But I think that we can probably all agree that you can make the same argument about in-person enforcement of this by police officers, that you can't prove that improves safety either. Same argument. If you can't prove it for the automated cameras, I don't think you can improve it for police cameras or for police officers. But I know from driving through speed traps in Texas when I was growing up, that people know where the speed traps are and they slow down. And so at least in the area of the enhanced enforcement, then people tend to, in my experience and limited data, people tend to know where they are, figure out where they are, and obey the law better there. And again, as my colleague from the First Ward said, there is no way to prove that once they clear the town boundary that they don't lay it on the accelerator so much that they cause more problems. I think that getting back to the heart of the amendment, that this is a budgetary issue and being introduced here, that we can certainly discuss changes to how revenue is allocated in the future. And I look forward to that. I think that introducing such an amendment at this stage of the budget is difficult. I think that it would be extraordinarily difficult for staff to produce a balanced budget in order for us to get this done by the time we need to send out our tax notices. And I think that there are enough repercussions of this that we would not be able to even potentially set a tax rate this evening. Would have to have a lot of discussions. But again, we can bring that up in the future and see where it goes. Before I quit speaking, I'll mention that Miss Abby Kay put in the chat, said, I don't need to speak about this, but I want to express appreciation for CM Smith's compromise in trying to address some core problems in the short and long term. The and is in all capital letters. So I wanted to make sure that made it into the minutes. With that, is there any other council or public comments on this amendment? Seeing none, no hands raised, no microphones unmuted, I will do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe is absent. Councilmember Lingua.
Nay.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingua. Councilmember Enyang
Nay.
and Councilmember Kellon.
Yeah,
That was a yes.
yeah.
Okay, and I abstain. Oh, I guess it's 2-2. I will vote nay. The motion fails 2-3. Councilmember Smith, did you have an additional amendment or was that just the one amendment?
I do have one other amendment, yes.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yes, I would like to offer amendment that the community safety position in the FY25 budget be designated as non-sworn personnel.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Motion to designate the public safety, new public safety position to be a non-sworn police officer position by Councilmember Smith, seconded by Councilmember Enyang. Councilmember Smith, go ahead. If you'd like
Thank
to
you,
describe your-
Mr. Mayor. Oh, I'm sorry, is there, am I stepping on somebody?
There was a second one, so you
Okay.
can now describe your.
I thought I was just talking over somebody, but I'll keep it going. Yeah, so first I just want to acknowledge my gratitude for our police officers. I actually had to call them to our neighborhood today for a young gentleman who was doing some things that he is perfectly welcome to do in the privacy of his own home, but not on private property in front of my house. And as with every interaction I've had with our police, they were courteous and professional, and I was thankful to have them. So again, as always, thank you to our police department and also to our town manager. I am somewhat I have some discomfort in knowing that this managing the staff is the responsibility of the town manager, managing the police department. is the responsibility of the chief. And any hesitation I have in offering this amendment comes from a reluctance for even the appearance of stepping on the toes of folks that I greatly appreciate and who I think do a great job keeping our town moving. I do, however, have a responsibility to represent my constituents, some of whom have expressed concerns over this position, and those are concerns that I share. From the way the position has been described to me, it seems clear that if that the duties involved are most appropriately performed by non-uniformed staff. I'm told there's a provision in the state statute for the automated traffic enforcement requiring such a program to be managed by a sworn officer, and that this person would do that. As I've made pretty clear, that is not a program of support, and I believe if that's something that we are going to do, it should be managed with existing personnel. In a budget where we all, mayor, council, and staff, have noted hard decisions have to be made, it's hard for me to support adding additional staff to a department that is already much larger than every other department in both staff and budget. As a town manager, as noted in our conversations, the cost of maintaining municipal law enforcement agency continues to grow at a rate such that in a few years, we're gonna have to have some serious conversations about funding basic police operations. And so adding additional uniformed personnel to the police department at a time when future revenues are murky seems imprudent to me. Furthermore, we generally use terms like community safety as interchangeable with policing. And I'd like to remind us all that housing is community safety, and nutrition is community safety, and healthcare is community safety, as well as any number of other issues that affect the day-to-day sustainability of families in Riverdale Park. And hindering access to these essentials begets desperation, and desperation begets crime. And so it occurs to me, by growing the uniformed presence in our town, that we are attempting to treat symptoms, not problems. And so I think it is, again, most appropriate that this position be designated as non-uniformed, unsworn personnel. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for your comments, Councilmember Smith. Council discussion of the motion to amend the budget to change the designation of the new public safety officer to be unsworn, not a sworn officer, but unsworn.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, oh,
So Mr. Town Manager, I'm gonna let the council comment first. Councilmember Lingua, I believe you were first, so go ahead.
thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. If I may, I would like to ask of town staff, because I know this was brought up, I know the functions, the scope of the duty of the added officer was discussed, and I was wondering if staff could please provide a refresher for all here as to the duties of this new position.
Mr. Town Manager, can you please address the council member's question?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Smith is correct in his description. Part of the position is to work on the expanded automated enforcement. So if the town is going to expand automated enforcement, then we need to have someone actually work on that. And working with the chief, we've determined that we need to add a position to do that, or we'll have to remove someone from a primary in the field law enforcement position. And then that has a negative impact on officer safety. This is about being able to properly administer the expanded program. In addition to that, there's duties related to community engagement, recognizing that policing is more than enforcing laws. It's working with the community. Our police do that on a daily basis. They engage our residents. They visit our businesses. They problem solve. That's what our police do. Matter of fact, later on this evening in my report, the chief and I are going to talk about how the police and the other departments are working collaboratively on an issue in our multifamily housing. police wear many hats. We call upon them to wear even more. So this position, from my perspective, is absolutely essential if you're going to have expanded automated enforcement. So the state law does not permit us to have a civilian in that role. There was a bill that was considered this year. That bill on the state level did not succeed. If the state were to change that in the future, then from an operations standpoint, that's something that I can reconsider and work with the chief to determine whether or not a civilian would be appropriate in our operation in that role. The in terms of losing this position, and I call it losing the position because if it's made a civilian position, we actually have to rethink what the position's going to do. And then we have to rethink whether or not we can expand automated enforcement and what impact that's going to have on our current police operation. So that's what I have to share so far, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Lozician. Councilmember Lingua, did that answer your question?
It did 95+% of it. I thought I also remember hearing at some point that one of the, as part of the scope of the duty of this officer, along with what they're doing with automated enforcement, was also going to be by being a sworn officer, they would also be able to help out in and around the elementary school when needed, should the county be deficient in affording a crossing guard at one of the intersections. Am I correct in that?
Mr. Town Manager?
Yes, yes, Councilmember Lingua, my apologies for not mentioning those duties, as well as to simply be able to respond to calls for service as well. I've mentioned before that in addition to being our acting chief, Chief Turner is responding to calls for service. And the county is deficient in covering their crossing walks, despite their recent PR campaign. And I say that because our officers have covered since November, I believe every school day, the crosswalk at Taylor and Queensbury. And with the county's difficulties, we go around and we check the other crosswalks. And adding a position that is sworn certainly will provide assistance in covering that.
Councilmember Lingua, are you done or do you have additional comments?
No, I'm done. Thank you very much for that refresher, Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith, you want your second set of remarks?
Yes, yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll make it quick. Just a question.
Councilmember Kellon hasn't had a chance to speak, and he did try to speak earlier. I'm sorry, his hand wasn't up, so I'd forgotten that. Councilmember Kellon, would you like to speak?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, what I am saying here, automated technology cannot arrest a vagabond, right? The more population increase, the more we need a police strength to be increased. Because one man cannot fight a dozen. Let's try to increase the strength of the police. If that happens, because the population is rising in our TRP, the population is rising. When the population rises, the police strength should be increased. If not, it's going to be a fatigue for lesser police officers. So my own point is this. Yeah, technology is there, but you cannot send technology in somebody's apartment to go and arrest that person. Who can do that? A trained police officers. They can do that. So what I'm suggesting, let's find a way to increase the strength of the police so that they themselves can know how to do their job. But if the strength is low, it's going to give them fatigue. And they cannot be able to cover all the areas. And Riverdale, town of Riverdale, the population is high now. It's very high. So this is my take. Okay, first of all, let me ask the town manager. Mr. Town Manager, have you confirmed the chief?
Mr. Town Manager?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
The question is whether you had confirmed the chief, and I'll go ahead and answer. The chief is still Chief Turner is still acting.
All right. Okay. Let me just forget about that now. But I don't know how long it's going to be active. So, Mr. Mayor, this is what I'm saying. Let's increase the strength of the police so that the TRP can be safe. This is my own take. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your comments. Again, Councilmember Smith, Councilmember Inyang has not spoken yet. I'm going to let him speak, and then we'll loop back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think appreciate the colleague in the first ward bringing this amendment up. I think the idea of sort of say there are a couple conversations that are happening. Sort of the way I see it is, I think we've already sort of supported automated enforcement, right? And so the idea that an additional position is needed to sort of support automated enforcement, I think for those who sort of support it, I think that for me personally, that makes sense. It's something that's worthwhile to doing. So I think the question of the head count makes sense. I think for me, the crux is in the idea of does it need to be sort of uniformed or not. And so some of the arguments of like being able to cover like crosswalks, I think that's a valid sort of additional role that this person can do. But again, the county's trying to hire civilians for that role, so a non-uniform officer could also do that role too. So I don't necessarily see that as an argument for why it would be an officer like a uniform position. And so for me, I guess if we are saying that the only like by law we are required to have a sworn officer to the position, then I guess our hands are tied. If you believe that you should have the head count, then we must do it. For me personally, if that was not the case, then I would definitely be in support of having a civilian position in this role, since this is an opportunity to add to some of the public service functions that we've sort of have been laid out here without having to pull an officer off of their current obligations. And we could, I'm sure we could envision what that person would look like, what the qualifications would be if this person is part automated enforcement, but also part in the community, having sort of unique skill sets, whether it's a social worker or someone who has like experiences in other sort of critical kind of community safety infrastructure support and background, I think would be a valuable asset to the community. But if we are sort of like locked by an existing state law that says we have to have a uniformed officer, then those are I guess that's the reality of what we are right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Inyang. Councilmember Smith, you still have comments?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just one brief question for clarification. My understanding is that the role of the uniformed officer that would support an automated enforcement program is to testify when tickets are contested by the driver, that we have a certain set of procedures for the program and that those procedures were followed in the given case. That is the extent of the role that I know. I would bet that there's more to it than that. So if there's information that can be provided on that, I'd be interested to hear it.
And Mr. Mayor, may I respond?
Please do.
And Chief, jump in here. It's my understanding that we need a sworn officer to review every videoed incident to determine whether or not there's a violation. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir. You have to
So-
be a sworn officer to approve a speed camera violation as well.
So, and that involves reviewing each entry that is recorded in excess of 12 miles an hour over the speed limit or more.
Correct. Any potential violation that we receive from our vendor has to be reviewed by a sworn officer.
And there's time constraints. We have to review that within a short period of time. Is that correct?
Yes, I think the citation has to be mailed within 12 days.
Does that answer your
That
question?
clarification, I would like for that additional cost for this position and the associated liability insurance and all that comes with that. Just like for that to be noted, and as we talk about the revenue that's been promised for automated enforcement, but I don't want to dwell on that because we've spent a good amount of time on it already. Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Town Manager.
And Mr. Mayor, may I respond?
Please go ahead.
That's in the budget. So the positions for automated enforcement, Mr. Jones, is it correct to say that those positions are in the automated enforcement cost center?
Yes.
And that includes their salaries, wages, benefits,
All of them is included.
equipment, training, all that's charged against the program?
Yeah, yes.
Yes, so that's in the budget currently.
Okay. I think we've gone through most of the council, so unless somebody unmutes, I'll go ahead and open it to public comments on this amendment. I'm not seeing anyone with their hand up or unmuting, so I don't have any comments myself on this, so I'll move immediately to a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe is not here. Councilmember Lingua.
Nay.
Councilmember Inyang.
Nay.
Councilmember Mejia is absent. Councilmember Kellon.
Yeah,
So you're voting yes to make this officer not be a sworn officer.
it's going to be a officer, not unsworn officer. It has to be a well-trained police officers. Because if he put somebody there who is a civilian, he put that person's life in danger. Let me tell you.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think you may be voting the opposite way you want, but I'll take your aye as an aye, and I will vote nay, and the motion fails 2-3.
Okay, I know.
Any additional amendments to the ordinance 2024-OR-02? The two proposed so far have failed. Any additional amendments? Any additional discussion on the main motion? Any public comments on the main motion to adopt ordinance 2024-OR-02 regarding the fiscal year 2025 budget and tax rates? Seeing none, I will do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe is absent. Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Inyang.
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia is absent. Councilmember Kellon.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 4-0. We have adopted the budget for fiscal year 2025. Moving along on the agenda, are there any items of new business?
Actually, Mr. Mayor, yes, there is. I do have one item of new business.
Yes, sir.
And I might need to get an update from staff on this. What I like to bring, well, let me just get to it. What I like to bring up under new business is the fact that today is 6 months since a very tragic event happened at the intersection of Riverdale Road and Taylor Road. And it is my understanding at this point, that there is yet to be a published written report about this accident from Prince George's County Police.
Council member, I'll be covering this in my mayor's report under the work session.
Okay, well, we're here now,
Okay.
so no time like the present. There's something you care to share.
Okay, well, as you mentioned, it's exactly 6 months. It was November 20th that the tragedy occurred, the death of the 2 children walking to school. And I have been in communication with Chief Aziz of the Prince George's County Police Department several times during the intervening months. I got in touch with him again last Thursday, and he said that there is a written report and it has been distributed to the state's attorney's office. State's attorney is considering whether to press charges against the person who was driving the vehicle that killed the 2 children. And that is under review. I expressed my disappointment and displeasure with the fact that 6 months later, the town was still hoping on some guidance on things we might do to prevent a similar accident from happening in the future. And he said that he would work with his staff to provide us with a detailed summary of that report as quickly as possible. He was hoping it would be sometime today, but I have not heard from him. I'll be reaching out again as soon as I can. But I expect that certainly before the June legislative meeting, we will have such a report in hand.
Okay, well, perhaps then we could have a letter sent to him officially, have a letter sent to him, expressing this disappointment that that nothing has been published as to yet, and B, that it is our sincere hope that we do see such a report prior to the end of this month.
Are you making a motion, since we are in special legislative, to have such a letter generated and sent?
It is now.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Smith to send a letter to Chief Aziz expressing disappointment and displeasure with the fact that a written report summarizing the causes and events of the November 20th, 2023 accident has not yet been received, and expressing a desire to have such a report before the 3rd of June. Is that the legislative meeting?
On or before the 31st of May.
31st of May. Okay, is that a reasonable summary of the motion and second?
Sounds so to me.
Okay. Is there council discussion of this motion?
Does that sound like a reasonable summation to the seconder?
Councilmember Smith? You're muted, Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was having an audio issue. Could the question be repeated?
So I made a summary of my interpretation.
Oh, yes.
And you thought the summary was acceptable?
Yes.
Okay. Is there discussion of the motion to send the letter to Chief Aziz as detailed as quickly as possible, presumably? Is there additional council discussion? Are there public comments? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Foe is absent. Councilmember Lingua?
Aye.
Councilmember Inyang,
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia is absent, Councilmember Callan.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 4-0. Mr. Town Manager, if staff could generate a letter and send it to me as quickly as possible, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Will do.
Are there any additional items of new business? Okay, let's go to unfinished business where we had an item added to the agenda, which is discussion about whether a letter requesting a ceasefire in the Gaza war be presumably a permanent ceasefire, but a ceasefire be discussed. So Councilmember Lingua, you asked that this be added. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And to those folks who are with us tonight, I know some of you folks have reached out and are looking to have the council address this issue. And really what I would like to offer to these members who are in the audience who are here at this time to share with the council their thoughts and their opinions on this matter. I would like to start, if possible, with Ms. Hancock, being that she had sent a letter in late April.
So council member, the tradition is for us to have council comments first, followed by public. So are there any council comments on this topic? Councilmember Smith. Oh, Councilmember Lingua, are you done with your discussion?
I'm done with my discussion, but I do want to point out there have been numerous times that prior to any of us having a motion or a discussion, you ask for input from staff on it. And before we begin discussion, I would ask that we could offer this to the residents who are here. As our tradition, they are honorary members of the council.
They are. You will note that in every other discussion this evening, they have come second. If you would like to ask that Ms. Hancock represent to take your time, I think that would be fine. I think that we should allow the other council members, if she's going to summarize the topic and an item that you might want to make a motion on, then I would be amenable to a single person, presumably Ms. Hancock, summarizing that, but I would rather not have all the public comments come before the council comments.
Well, you know, I know that we've, I know Ms. Hancock has sent in a letter. I know also Mr. Shazia Khan has sent a letter as well, and I know he's here at the meeting. I am just offering up to these folks, and I am checking here. I know Allison Spain has offered up a letter as well. I don't see Ms. Spain here, so you know, I would like to offer my time for both Ms. Hancock and Shazia Khan, if that would be allowed by the council.
I believe that would require a suspension of the rules. Would you like to make such a motion?
Motion to suspend the rules to allow Ms. Hancock and motion to suspend the rules to allow, hold on. I'm just sorry, I wasn't gonna hold back. I hate to cough. For Jennifer Hancock, excuse me.
Councilmember Lingua, are you done with your motion?
Just making sure I'm using proper names here, and I'm just needing to. Ms. Eleanor Hancock, and I hope I get this right, Mr. Shazia Khan.
Is there a second to the motion to suspend the rules? There's no second to your motion to suspend the rules.
Okay. So be it.
Okay, so do any members of the council wish to speak to the topic of writing a letter at this time? And of course, speak up later.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Smith, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm anxious to hear from our residents on this. I, for one, am absolutely in favor of sending such a letter. I think it's important for folks in our government to see the a grassroots movement from cities and towns, but more importantly, I think it is important to demonstrate solidarity with those in our community who have family members that are directly impacted by the ongoing conflict in the Gaza Strip. I think what's happening there is abhorrent, and I think that there was a disgusting terrorist act perpetrated by a terrorist group, and as a response, in my view, it seems a war is being waged on the civilian population where, for example, the UN has described full-blown famine conditions in northern Gaza, and just today, the International Criminal Court, the chief prosecutor, sought indictments against both the leaders of Hamas and the Israeli government. And I think, given the conditions on the ground there, the level of civilian casualties, what appears to be the intentional targeting of civilians, it is important for us to demonstrate solidarity with our neighbors on this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for your comments. Are there additional council comments? Councilmember Inyang, go ahead.
Oh.
Yeah, I think I completely agree about the situation is dire there. My only comment and wanting to support, I appreciate the letters, the emails that we've received from residents asking us to lend our voice to the larger conversation that's happening now. My only question is just around the form that it would take. I'm not necessarily sure a letter is like the right, a letter to whom would be sort of my first guess. But I know, maybe a resolution or something else may sort of hit the mark a little bit better than just sort of like a letter. But I would looking forward to hearing more from the public comments on this and appreciate their time.
Thank you, Councilmember Inyang. Any additional council comments on this topic?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Callan, go ahead.
Yeah, you see, God said, anyone that making peace, you are on his path. These two people that are fighting, they are from the same generation, but different mother. So it's better for us to try to make peace between these two people so that the area can be safe and peaceful. Because if you look, they all are from Prophet Abraham, Ismail and Isaac. They are generation that are fighting. So they are two brothers. So let's try to make peace. If we can be able to make peace between these two people, it will be fine. But we can't just sit down, looking them fighting, killing themselves, damaging properties without intervening. So I would like us to bring peace between these two people. They are the same family members. See, they are the same father. The difference is they are not the same mother. So this is my own take. Let's try to make peace between these two people, these two family. They are brothers. So this is my take, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councilmember Kellogg. Are there additional council comments? Or are we ready for public comments? Don't see any council, so Abby K, please go ahead. Your hand is up first.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much to Councilmember Lingua for raising the profile of this issue in response to residents. Really appreciate that. For all of you who I don't know, my name is Abby. I live in Riverdale Park, Ward 1 on 46th Avenue. And I'm speaking in support of the town council discussing a resolution like the other 3 municipalities in Prince George's County have passed, and 2 others who are actively moving resolutions this week. This is not something that would be unique to Riverdale Park. We would be acting in solidarity with others. We all know the situation in Gaza is unbelievably dire, beyond dire. And what I want to address is why this work is ours to do. The Riverdale Park Town Council is elected to represent this community through government. We are grateful for your collaboration, communication, and advocacy to the county, as well as the state on a range of issues. Recently, even the Federal Army Corps of Engineers has intersected with the work on Wells Run. You are a channel for information and our voices. In 2020, the Riverdale Park Town Council passed a resolution affirming the town's commitment to diversity and inclusion and against racism. Islamophobia is not solely about religion. It is a terrible mixture with racism. A strength of our community in Riverdale Park is its diversity. This overwhelmingly Islamophobic racist action by the United States speaks volumes to our neighbors in Riverdale Park. That government supports some of the values, some lives, but not all lives. This situation erodes trust in elected officials and government. All elected officials and government. This affects us. A resolution like that was passed months ago in Cheverly, for example, supporting universal human rights and a permanent ceasefire would remind members of the Riverdale Park community that this council takes action when racism is evident and communicates with other levels of government about it. We cannot draw such a firm line separating local and international anymore when it comes to government. The international is in our lives regularly. If you're an immigrant, if your family was born abroad, if your neighbors are refugees, or if you have friends in any one of these situations, and more. The transnational is the norm. The council is not a diplomatic entity, and we are not asking you to be one. But this situation affects our communities, the families here, our neighbors, and affects this body, whether or not you like it or not. So I'd like to support and ask you to further this discussion, to take a symbolic stand, to send a message to other levels of government. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abby K. Ms. Hancock, you are next. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. So I agree that what I would like to see happen is a resolution. I think that would make the most sense. I appreciate Congressmember Lingua for as to receiving my letter and bringing this request to the council. And though I've already spoken, I will just say I am a resident of Ward 3. I live on Longfellow Avenue. So the ongoing assault on Gaza is being funded by U.S. taxpayer dollars. And to me, that's the most immediate and relevant reason why we have to act on this. So my understanding is that there's $80 million of taxpayer money from Maryland that are going to fund Israel's campaign of collective punishment in Gaza, which when I say that out loud is just absurd. Why should our taxpayer dollars be going to fund a foreign government military assault on a civilian population? especially when there are things that we need here. We need that money to be doing here. So, you know, as Abby began to raise, the Israeli government's military campaign in Gaza has been ruled by the ICJ to be a plausible genocide. Now we have the International Criminal Court that's seeking arrest warrants for Bibi Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant for crimes that include extermination and deliberate starvation of a civilian population. This is not something that's just tragically happening in another part of the world. It's something that I and all of us are being forced to pay for, which is a violation of ourselves. And so as a taxpayer, city government is the closest proximity I have to government power. Residents of District 4 are turning towards our local governments. There's a lot of different resolutions being passed across the Route 1 district, Route 1, corridor. We're doing this after being unable to move Representative Ivey on this issue. So by passing local resolutions across the district, we can bring collective power to bear on the federal government, which is one of the main things that I think, honestly, I don't think Israel's going to stop without some kind of action at the federal level by the United States, which controls the funding of of Israel's military activity. But we can also set a precedent upon which to build for various forms of divestment across our communities and our state by building at the municipal level. Regarding the common misconception and I believe disingenuous propaganda that criticizing the state of Israel is anti-Semitic, which no one here is saying, but just to throw it out there, Jewish people and the Israeli state are two different things. Over half the world's Jewish population lives outside of Israel. Over 20% of Israel's population is not Jewish. It's inaccurate to assume that the Israeli government represents Jewish people worldwide, and even that assumption itself is anti-Semitic and dangerous to Jewish people to have that be associated with that based on their identity. So I'm personally deeply disturbed by the fact that my tax dollars are funding what I consider to be a genocide, and I appreciate so much the accessibility and the true, quite the word that I want here, but just being part of this, I'm fairly new to the town, and just being part of this meeting today, I feel that there is, everyone that's present is in good faith, bringing forward things for the best interests of the people in the town. And so I'm glad that Riverdale Park is my home, and I just urge the council to be a mouthpiece for residents across the town whose voices are being disregarded at the federal level by our federal representatives. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Hancock. I'm going to guess at the boundary between your names, Ms. Correa?
Yes, Katerina Correa.
Correa, thank you.
Yeah, my name is, I know I should change that, I noticed that. I'm Katerina Correa. I'm a resident of Riverdale Park. I've been here 19 years. I'm Ward 1. I live on 44th Avenue. And I'm going to be brief. I'm just going to talk to you as a mother, and a mother of a 16-year-old who, like most of our kids, watches social media and is well aware of what is going on and is horrified by it, is subjected. I mean, and of course, it's nothing compared to what the people in Gaza are subjected to. But the fact is that they're seeing, these mutilated bodies being pulled out of the rubble, so much horror, and they know that the United States is complicit. And at least my son is wondering why people aren't doing anything. And I thought it was really interesting also that my son, when I was asking him about it, he's a student at Eleanor Roosevelt. And he said, I was like, what are people saying there? He said, everyone there wants a ceasefire. Obviously, he can't speak for everyone, but I mean, I think the general, and I think we've seen most young people are aware of what is going on. And so I guess what I'm asking is that while our kids are watching a genocide play out in real time, I would like to be able to show them that we care as well, and that we're horrified. And I think that we should be doing all we can to try to stop this and show them that we are equally concerned. And I think a ceasefire resolution from this council would be a good way to show our kids that they live in a town that values the sanctity of all life, and that is willing to take a stand and do what it can to stop stop this slaughter. And so I urge you to write and pass a ceasefire resolution and make our kids proud, make me proud to be a resident of this town. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Correa. Ms. Kelly, go ahead.
Thank you. I can only endorse what people have already said. The situation in Gaza is inhumane, inhuman. And what little we can do here to support the end of it, we ought to do.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Ms. Kronk?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I didn't prepare comments. I wanted to make sure that I joined tonight, but I wasn't sure what I was going to say. And just want to echo the comments that my fellow community members have made. You know, I think that there are a few times in each of our lifetimes when we're faced with a decision of inaction or action that has real consequences, that has grave consequences. We make a lot of decisions each day, but they're not life or death consequences for the most part. This one, I feel like it is. This is one of those moments when I know that I'm going to look back 10 years from now, 20 years from now, hopefully 30 years from now, and not only want to be proud of actions that I took, that I felt like had an impact on the horror that we're seeing unfold, but I want to be proud of the way that my elected officials moved as well and took action as well. And as others have mentioned, you know, many of us are advocating at the federal level and at the state level, and there's been some movement in those corridors, in those legislative bodies. But, you know, again, as others have mentioned, this is the place where we go to be represented, to engage in representative democracy. And so while some may feel like this is a symbolic action, I actually feel like it's a really material one. And so I would very actively and strongly encourage the council to move with speed toward drafting a resolution that addresses the horror that we're seeing, that makes clear where our town stands on that. There are many municipalities across the country, over 150 other municipalities across the country have passed resolutions calling for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. And so we wouldn't be the first. We also won't be the last. There are another over 30 that are being drafted across the country right now. And up and down the Route 1 corridor, from Colmar Manor to College Park, our neighbors are also engaging in passing resolutions. So we wouldn't be the first, we wouldn't be the last, we wouldn't be alone. But as Councilmember Smith said, this is an important act of solidarity, not just with people who live across the world, but with people who live in our own community and in our own neighborhood. So thank you for the time, and really, again, strongly encourage a resolution with speed. And I look forward to speaking on behalf of that in public comments at the next town meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Kronk, for your comments. Ms. Correa and Ms. Kelly, I think your hands are still up from the previous comments. Are there any additional public comments? There's a comment in the chat. I'll just read it out loud. This is from Shazia or Shazia, I'm not sure which, Khan. I was born and raised in Riverdale and have resided here for over 30 years with my immigrant Muslim parents. I fully support the comments made by other residents regarding our shared concerns about the war in Gaza. I'm urging the Riverdale Town Council to voice our community's concerns, support a ceasefire in Gaza, and identify opportunities for our community members to raise awareness and provide aid to those in need. Thank you for attention to this important matter. Thank you for that written comment. Are there any additional comments, council or public?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Smith, go ahead.
Just one thing I forgot to mention in my remarks is that recently, I think last week, the U.S. State Department acknowledged that it is likely that U.S. provided weapons are being used to intentionally target civilians in the Gaza Strip. But then just based on the volume and tenor of the comments we have heard from our residents, I think, just my 2 cents, I think we have a clear I think it's pertinent that we engage in this as a resolution versus a letter based on what I've heard from our residents this evening.
Okay. Additional council or public comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Councilmember Lingua, go ahead.
I'd like to thank members of the council and especially members, residents who have raised their voices here regarding this matter. Whether or not we have a resolution tonight or a resolution by the June meeting, it seems more likely it would be the June meeting than tonight. I hope that we can all agree going forward that we will have such a resolution to consider and vote on at that meeting. With that sentiment, I would encourage residents to please offer language for consideration for a resolution so that we council members can read it, look at it, discuss it, and see how we can be able to incorporate it so that it is a resolution that is a community effort. I think just to have some type of structure, we probably want to be able to have those comments, let's say early part of next week, the last of them really just after the holidays, so we can have time to hash it out and be able to give staff time to put a resolution together for all to look at prior to the meeting. Usually documents go out that Friday, first council be able to consider, and then it's brought up that Monday. That's not to say amendments cannot be made at the Monday meeting. They can, but it would be good to have the majority of the structure of the resolution ready for that meeting.
Thank you for those additional comments, Councilmember Lingua. Anyone else? Mr. Town Manager, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Staff are going to need whatever input from the council receives from the community and the staff receive from the council no later than the Wednesday prior to the meeting. So we're able to format and to ensure that it aligns with the town's stated values and our vision and commitment statements, our diversity statements, our other past resolutions and that sort of thing. So we'll need a few days to do that. So respectfully, we'd ask to have that by close of business Wednesday before the meeting.
I was trying to give you an extra day there with Tuesdays, but you're good with Wednesday. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before moving on, then I will make a suggestion. Oh, there's additional comments. Go ahead. Abby Kay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to clarify the timing again, because I see that there's a June legislative meeting and a June work session.
This is for the legislative session. So
This is for the
we are
so-
anticipating having this ready for a vote on June 3rd.
Okay, thank you.
If I have the day correct, I might be a day off. Whatever that Monday is. Councilmember Inyang.
Yes, I would just, and appreciate Councilmember Smith putting in the chat. I would encourage staff to sort of look at the resolution that Cheverly passed as like a starting point, so that they're not starting from a blank page. And as well as, we'll try our best to relay any information. If there's a particular point of contact that the town manager would prefer people to send it to, please let us know. Obviously, I think as our residents reach out to us, we'll forward it as well. But if there's a particular point, just let us know. We can help direct comments that way as well.
Thank you, Councilmember Inyang. I was going to suggest that the staff reach out to the municipalities that were mentioned earlier as having something in the works and see if they could get draft copies of those and provide them to the council as well as quickly as possible.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
And we have our community input at riverdaleparkmd.gov email address. So actually, folks here this evening, people watching later on, if you have ideas now, please email us at community input or community_input at riverdaleparkmd.gov. And we can have the staff team begin to work on this now.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. So before moving on, probably to adjournment, then I will just mention that early in this conflict, I made a simple statement, which was that it's my thought that everyone who commits a war crime should face justice for that. And I've been surprised to find that not everyone agrees with that. I don't understand that. It doesn't make any sense to me. And as the conflict has continued on, then I too have grown dismayed. And I absolutely agree that one of the jobs of town government, of local government, is to relay the opinions of the community, advocate on behalf of the community further in higher levels of government. And so I think that this is an appropriate activity, and I think that time is of the essence, and I'm glad to see us moving forward on this. So thank you all. Any additional comments? Thank you for your comment, Ms. Hancock, about the ICC. I was pleased to see that in the news today. So I appreciate your comment as well. Okay, any additional items of unfinished business? If not, may I please have a motion to adjourn the special legislative meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Inyang, seconded by Councilmember Smith. This is neither debated nor discussed. Do a roll call vote immediately. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Lingua. Aye.
Councilmember Inyang.
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia is not in attendance. Councilmember Callan.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 4-0. We are adjourned at 9:49 p.m.
Good night, everybody.
Mr. Callan, we have a work session still. Please stay around.
Oh, okay.
I will now call the work session to order at 9:50 p.m. This is a much less formal event. We can talk as many times as we want. Members of the public can speak up. So first question is whether any changes are required to the agenda or whether there are any stated conflicts of interest for the agenda items. Okay, we don't need any motions, so let's move along. Mayor's report, I actually am going to defer my report until next week. I mentioned the news I had. Actually, I have a little bit to go on that. So I mentioned having a discussion with Chief Aziz last week about the tragic death of our community's children 6 months ago. And there was this was at the Prince George's County Municipal Association meeting. He was at that meeting, and I spoke with him privately afterwards via telephone. And the one thing that surprised me were the number of open intersections versus the number of positions that they were seeking to fill. And so I believe that, as the town manager said, that the police have had to cover one of the 2 intersections near the school every school day since the tragedy. That the county thinks they're doing their job. They don't think that another person is required for that second intersection. And that in and of itself is disappointing. I'm going to be trying to clarify that with County Council Member Olson and perhaps our school board representative also over the weeks ahead. And I will close my report with that and defer all other topics until next week. Mr. Town Manager?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, unfortunately, I can't defer everything till June 3rd, but I'll try to keep it as short as possible. Just a reminder that our town hall and DPW operations will be closed on Memorial Day. And also on Memorial Day, there's a wreath laying service at 11 a.m. At our Veterans Memorial. Wanted to just mention briefly to the council, I'll follow up with an email as it relates to the Municipal Center project and the council chambers. Just to alert you, I'll be sending something out in reference to the dais. We had received feedback from the council that one, you wanted a dais. 2, the staff seating was to be separate, and 3, to have a desk that was more of a semicircle so that council members could see each other more readily and engaging in discussion. And what we've learned is to meet that 3rd requirement, we'll have to build the dais out an additional 3.5 feet or so from the wall, and that's taken up a considerable amount of the floor space. So we're working on some options for you to make this space as multi-use as possible. And so we'll send that out in an email, but we will need this on the agenda on June 3rd. Because we'll need some direction from you all as we finalize the few last tweaks of the project. And then lastly, I think it's necessary to bring up, we've been having both some property crimes as well, an increase in property crimes and an increase in some violent crimes. As the mayor and council are aware, I've sent out some significant incident notifications to you, reference to some cuttings, as they're called in Maryland. I refer to them as stabbings that we've had in our multifamily neighborhood east of the river and south of 410. We've also seen an increase in the number of thefts from auto. I was going to ask the chief for in 2 or 3 minutes, just kind of give a snapshot of what he's seeing. And then we can just mention to the council some of the things that we're working on. Chief.
Thank you, John. As John mentioned, we have seen a relative spike in crime, mostly east of the river, reference to assault and property crimes. We've met as a leadership team and discussed strategies and ways to address this issue, whether it be through neighborhood services or through with Jessica and her team for communication to the public. My staff has stepped up patrols as well as not just our regular patrols, but as foot patrols as well as in the multifamily units. We've had meetings with the park police to discuss some issues we're having along Tanglewood Drive. One of the instances that the town manager brought up was a stabbing that occurred on park property that spilled over into the town. One of the cuttings was solved with an arrest, and I believe the one that the park police is handling should be as well shortly. But just to let you know that we're aware of it, we're addressing the situation, and we're doing our best to keep it under control.
And thank you for that, Chief. And part of that is that the crucial meetings with the management and the ownership of our multifamily buildings. We have found a receptive ear among some of the building owners and managers, but not all. And so the other thing that we're looking at are some legislative changes. And one concept that we're going to bring back to you possibly by the 3rd is to require that certain multifamily buildings over X number of units actually would have to be secure buildings. A lot of this crime is being driven by drug use, by fentanyl use. And we are receiving complaints in one of our largest multifamily buildings of regular overdoses occurring, people just wandering into the building. We had one person overdose. I don't believe they were a resident of the building, overdose and died in the stairwell. This is a serious issue. The town staff are taking it very seriously. And so we are looking at legislative changes, stepped up patrol, communications. We can't forget public works in terms of policing up the area. We've talked about the area known as the Cut. Councilmember Foe mentioned that in a public meeting not long ago about concerns in the Cut. And it's one of those things we have to look at all available tools that we have to ensure the safety of our residents. And this right now is a little spike, but it's enough that it's really gotten our attention, and staff are concerned. And we're acting, I think, appropriately and proactively. And we'll have more to share on June 3rd.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Does that conclude your report?
It does, sir.
Are there any questions for the town manager from council or members of the public?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I would just ask that as staff develop those potential responses to present to council, that offering Narcan training to residents of the impacted areas, if that is not already on your radar, which y'all are usually a step ahead of me, so I'm sure it probably already is, but if not, I would like to see that included in the options.
We appreciate that, sir. That's already on the list, but it's good to state, but it's good to state it publicly. So we appreciate that.
Any additional council or public questions for the town manager about any item in his report?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Inyang, go ahead.
I appreciate the report, even though the news is pretty tragic. The question I had was around, you mentioned one of the potential options is sort of a secure building. No need to drain it now, but curious about sort of what that means in terms of what exactly is a secure building. If there's like something you can point me to, or if there's anything locally that you can sort of point to as like an example that might be helpful when you're sort of presenting it, so that it's a tangible thing that we're considering.
I'll follow up with an email to the full council.
Thank you.
Any additional council questions or comments? And we move along. Looks quiet. So let's go ahead to council committee and ward reports. Councilmember Smith, Ward 1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to thank the council again for indulging my comments earlier tonight in the previous session. And I don't want to take any more of everyone else's time this evening. So thank you.
Thank you for that very short report. Councilmember Lingua, Ward 3.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to keep this brief as well. And one thing I'm just going to do, one word of encouragement is for folks in town. As part of the town seal redesign, there is an event happening tomorrow. Pardon me, Wednesday evening over at Riversdale. And I would encourage residents to come out to this event. Artist has been selected and they're presenting drafts, draft images. And it's the second of several discussions on this. The first was this past Saturday at Riverdale Elementary. And I will say that it was somewhat lightly attended. So I hope folks can make some time Wednesday evening to be over at Riversdale for this event. I believe the event is listed on the town website or other various social media. Think of it as getting yourself ready for concerts on the lawn over there, which are going to be on Wednesdays this year. So please, I do hope to see folks out there. With that, I'll conclude the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingua. Councilmember Inyang, Ward 4.
The only thing I will say for today is I've talked to we've had issues around like the mail in Riverdale Park Station, the mailbox on Woodbury Street, Woodbury and 47th Street, 47th Street, across from the playground. That it's been, I think, multiple instances of people sort of breaking into it. I thought it was sort of a one-off instance. The resident who literally lives right in front of the mailbox has a Ring doorbell camera that recently has been ripped down. He's also reported that other times people have like covered it and then sort of gone in and opened up the mailbox. There seems to be no force of entry, so it seems like whoever is doing this has the key to the main mailbox, and so. Would just encourage the town, the chief and the town manager to sort of follow up with the postal service or the Secret Service, whoever sort of like leading that investigation to if we can get an update on terms of what's going on there. Is there an opportunity to change out the master lock for that particular box? I don't believe that this is happening with other mailboxes in the area. I might be wrong, but if it's targeted to that particular one, then I think it'd be I would encourage the town to kind of get a response on just what's happening, because I know it first started happening a couple months ago, but this is still sort of happening. I did confirm that the resident did file a police report, and so at least there's that. But that's the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Inyang. Councilmember Smith, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I would just add that has happened at least twice in the mailbox directly in front of my home in the last month or so. One of the occasions was on a either a Friday or a Saturday, and local law enforcement from Hyattsville and Riverdale Park did respond, but of course it's not their mailbox, so there's not much they can do. And Postal Service left that box unsecured through the weekend with folks' mail just sitting in there, which is incredibly disappointing. So if there are any conversations with the Postal Inspection Service or the Postmaster General, there's a little bit more to add to it.
Thank you for that comment. Let's go on to Councilmember Kellon, Ward 6.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. My ward, I don't know why the 54th place is barricaded. I mentioned it last time. and it's giving my residents over there a hard time to manipulate their vehicle, whether when they go and make a groceries to come to the 50 Riverdale Village apartment, it's giving the hard time. And there is no true vehicle to pass through there, like they go and do a heavy groceries, unless they go round and come back to the complex. I don't know why they barricade that area for now. So apart from that, 54th Avenue here, I mentioned this is last year for speed bump. But people are not responding. These guys, they are running here like crazy. Sometimes when you are coming from the side of your complex to approach the street, they are coming with a speed that's very terrifying, man. So I want Mr. Town Manager to consider this thing, to have even a 2-speed bump is okay, so that they can slow down on this place. And moreover, 54 and Spring Lane, that corner is too dark. I mentioned that before. It's too dark. The residents are complaining. So I don't know if we can try to put like 3 poles over there. That will be sufficient for the people. So apart from that, I think so. Let me yield my time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilmember Kellogg. Unless there are any comments or questions or any members of the council, next item on the agenda is public comments. Are there any public comments? Seeing none, let's go ahead and move to the work session discussion items. First item is fence permit request for 4705 Tuckerman Street, 6-foot wood fence.
Good evening, Mayor Thompson and members of the council. Staff seek direction from the mayor and council regarding a fence permit request for a 6-foot wood fence at 4705 Tuckerman Street. As you can see in the pictures, this is actually just a portion of a fence that's being replaced. The chain link fence in this picture is being removed and replaced with a wooden fence. Mr. McAllister is here today. He has obtained a building permit from the county. It appears that all administrative requirements have been met through this application.
Thank you, Director Barnes. I'm trying to understand exactly where the boundary between the 4-foot and the 6-foot. It's just mentioned as distances. The color is the same. Is that correct? And it's just on that one boundary.
Yes, it is. It's on the side yard, but Mr. McAllister may be able to explain a little bit more because the front building line and the back building line, it looks like the 4-foot high fence goes to the front building line, and then further back is the 6-foot fence. That's my understanding. Perhaps Mr. McAllister could provide more details.
Yeah, thank you, Jessica. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to clarify any questions you have on that if you'd like.
Well, I'm just looking at the drawing that's on screen. Is Director Barnes's statement that in front of the front building line, the fence is 4-foot, and behind the front building line, it's 6-foot?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. I think that's just wanted to understand what the proposal was. Councilmember Foe, of course, will have to weigh in on whether he'd like to discuss this fully or whether it can go on the consent agenda. I don't know where he is this evening, to tell you the truth. I haven't heard from him, but I'll be reaching out to him in the next 2 weeks. We have 2 weeks almost until and determine the answer to that. Have you spoken to the neighbors that you share this property line with, and are they okay with this?
Correct. Yeah. So the boundary line of the property actually covers two properties. I have spoken with the adjacent owner. As you may know, that property was transferred recently due to sale of the property. So I've spoken with not only the property owner, but also with the current renters or leases that are on the property. As far as I understand, there have been no objections. But I will certainly, once all the approvals are in place, let them know prior to us starting construction. We just recently obtained the contact information for the property to the rear of the shed there on the, I guess that would be the east side. So we'll be speaking with them between now and the next meeting.
Okay, very good. It was my tradition when I was the council member that I would talk to the residents myself, but I'm not sure if Councilmember Foe does that or not. But I will, I'll reach out to him and tell him that this is in his inbox and find out how he wants to move forward.
Okay, and just to clarify, so we had applied for permits back when we purchased the property back in 2017. So the existing fence is that the property covers 3 of the 4 sides. So all the other sides have been completed. And so this is basically the remaining I guess boundary of the property that has been left uncompleted. It currently has a chain link fence, which we intend to remove and replace with and match what's currently at the property. So, and at the time, if you recall, we had done this for in regards to a pet. We have a golden retriever. That pet had recently passed. We have a new one. So, and he is much more active and can jump fences a lot higher. So that's why we've increased to the full 6 feet across. As you know, we had 5 feet on the other side. So, yeah. But so that's what we intend to do, and certainly we'll talk with our other neighbor here in the next 2 weeks.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And as I said, I'll reach out to Councilmember Foe as quickly as I can.
Thanks.
Are there additional council questions or comments on this item? Okay. Let's move on to fiscal year 2024 revenue update.
Deputy Director Jones.
Sure, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight's revenue report covers fiscal years 2024, 2023, 2022, and 2021. And we've separated into 5 major categories, like the previous revenue reports. So for fiscal year 2024, local taxes total $6,892,714. The next major category is licenses and permits. We have a total of 205,322. For administrative fees, we have a total amount of 22,850. The next major category is fines and forfeitures. The total there is 34,670. And the last category is community safety programs. Again, this is the category where we capture speed camera revenue. The total there for fiscal year 2024 is $1,037,676. And we have a total of $8,193,232. Currently, while this revenue report covers the major categories, it doesn't cover all revenue, but we're currently at 95% of the revenue that was budgeted, with another month left. Additionally, we have 3 months of speed camera revenue, and we have money that flows back to the town. So at this point, currently, as far as revenue is concerned, we expect to hit and exceed our budgeted revenue. So yes, that concludes the fiscal year 2024 revenue report from July to May 17th, 2024. And if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Deputy Director Jones. Are there council or public questions for Deputy Director Jones? Okay, thank you for the report. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is fiscal year 2024 budget amendment.
Couldn't find the right button. Mr. Jones, are you handling this or is Mr. Smith?
I can handle it.
Great.
Okay, so yeah, we have tonight presenting an amendment of the fiscal year 2024 operating and capital improvement projects, improvement budget, I'm sorry. Staff requests that Mayor and Council introduce an ordinance at the June 3rd legislative meeting to amend the fiscal year 2024 operating and capital improvement budget. So for background, every June, staff review the current year budget for any required housekeeping amendments. At this time, staff seek an amendment of the fiscal year 2024 operating and capital improvement budget, specifically to reflect revenue and automated safety programs and expenditures in the contractual services, as the program will exceed the current authorized appropriated funds budgeted for the fiscal year 2024 operating budget. Secondly, to address order for design and code requirements for the Municipal Center renovation project, CIP number 18GG01. The timeline for the ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2024 operating and capital improvement budget is as follows. So there's an introduction at the June 3rd legislative meeting, adoption at the June 10th special legislative meeting, and effective on June 30th, 2024. Staff will be available at the May 20th work session to answer any questions for the Mayor, Council, and community.
Thank you for that presentation, Deputy Director Jones. Are there council questions about this this item?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Smith, go ahead.
As I'm sure expected, just would like some clarification on item 1 there. I am not jumping to conclusions, but yeah, I'd like to know what that the practical impact of that is.
Mr. Jones, you want to take that or you want me to?
Yeah, sure, I can take it. So when the budget was first drafted, we had a estimate, we had a proposed amount for our revenue and our expenditures. We have exceeded our revenue, and in doing so, we've had to increase the expenditure side as well, because as the revenue increases, the expenditures also increase. So yeah, that's why we have proposed an amendment to increase the expenditures in the contractual services section of the budget for the automated safety programs.
And is that increase in revenue and increase in expenditures roughly like net to zero or better for us as the town? Is this costing us more money, or are we making the adjustment to get more money is my question. I know that we have to pay a fee to get the revenue that we get from the enforcement. I'm just wondering how this, like what the net is on this.
I believe it's 2 to 1. Mr. Jones, is that approximately the split?
Yes. Yeah, so as we're paying more, it's because we're receiving more. So.
And the 2 being on the revenue side.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any additional questions or discussion? Any public comments or questions? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I was going to add one thing.
Yes.
We were not able to provide the numbers tonight because we're still crunching the numbers. And so it's not to surprise you all, but we need to have the numbers as close as possible for this, and we're still putting those together.
Okay, very good. And I understand that, of course, difficult to guess at these numbers, but appreciate you trying to do the best you can. Okay, no additional discussion. Let's move on to item 4, ordinance 2024-OR-03 regarding residential district automated speed monitoring.
And we have the chief here to walk us through this. This is on the agenda, just in preparation for the June 3rd anticipated adoption, and that's true for the next 3 items. Chief Turner.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. No action is requested at tonight's work session. At the June 3rd legislative meeting, staff requests the mayor and council adopt ordinance 2024-OR-03 regarding residential district automated speed enforcement. As discussed at the March 4th legislative meeting, the March 26th work session, and the April 1st legislative meeting, Town Code Chapter 64-20, school zones established, designates the school zone for speed monitoring as defined in Chapter 64-21, school zone speed monitoring systems authorized. State law permits speed monitoring in school zones only Monday through Friday during school hours. To ensure the health, safety, welfare of the residents, as well as the visitors to the town, staff recommend the council amend the town code to include residential enforcement districts where applicable. Following discussions with the mayor and council, staff worked with town attorney Fred Sussman to draft ordinance 24-OR-03 regarding residential district automated speed monitoring. The mayor and council introduced the ordinance 2024-OR-03 at the May 6th legislative meeting. A public hearing was held tonight before tonight's work session. The public hearing was advertised in the Washington Times on May the 7th and May the 13th and shared on the town's communication platform. Staff requests the mayor and council adopt ordinance 24-OR-03 regarding residential district enforcement speed monitoring at the June 3rd legislative meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Turner. Are there council questions or comments for Chief Turner? Already had a lot of discussion about this during the hearing, but any comments on the legislation itself?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Councilmember Lengua, go ahead.
In brief, I just want to express my appreciation to staff on preparation and the ensuing logistics to bring this to fruition and its operation. Thank you very much.
Any additional council questions or comments? Any public comments or questions? Okay, I guess my only question is a little bit outside of the realm of this, but assuming it is adopted on June 3rd, then nothing's going to change immediately except we start enforcing presumably a few weeks later on in 24 hours a day of the existing cameras. Is that correct?
Chief?
It won't affect the River Tech Court. Remember, that's going to stay
Right.
school zone enforcement. And
Thank
I
you.
believe we're looking for more, it's probably going to be around July the 1st before it actually starts.
Okay, well, that's maybe a week later than that. Does the additional time trigger any requirement for sending out warnings, or is that
So it doesn't by law. However, we plan to use some communication boards as well as advertise and the town's website and maybe even use our electronic messaging boards to make people aware.
okay? Very good. Those are all of my all of my questions or comments. So look forward to seeing this in a couple of weeks. Let's move on to ordinance 2020 item 5, ordinance 2024-OR-04 regarding stopping and standing of vehicles.
Chief, you're on again.
Yes, sir. Good evening again. No action is required at tonight's work session. At the June 3rd legislative meeting, staff requests the mayor and council adopt ordinance 2024-OR-04 regarding stopping, standing of vehicles. In support of the town's vision and commitment to transportation, and more specifically to the town's Walk, Bike, Drive Safety Initiative, town recommend revisions to Chapter 64. Following the mayor and council support of the proposed revisions, staff worked with town attorney Fred Sussman to draft ordinance 2024-OR-04 regarding stopping and standing of vehicles. Staff will be available to answer questions from the mayor and council about the ordinance if need be this evening.
Thank you, Chief. Council members, any questions? Looks pretty quiet. Any members of the public with questions? Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Am I missing? So what are the changes exactly? It may be completely obvious and I'm just missing it, but I just seeing here that it says we're requesting changes, but not what the changes are.
So if you scroll down, then the ordinance
Oh,
amendments.
there we go.
So keep scrolling. So up, go back up a little bit. We saw that there's some new text there.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. I remember we previously discussed this. Okay. I'm good.
Right. So this prohibits stopping and standing in bike lanes, designated bike lanes, but it does not address the issue of driving in bike lanes. So there's that requires changes to the state transportation article before we can do that. But we will make some progress towards having the bike lanes open for bicycles with passage of this. Just as a summary. Any additional council questions or comments? If staff wants to correct me if I messed up anything in that summary, then please jump in. Okay, let's move on then to, well, are there any, called for public comments, any additional council or public comments on that item? Item 5. Okay, let's move on to item 6, ordinance 2024-OR-05 regarding multifamily license fees.
Director Shelton.
Yes, no action is requested at tonight's work session. But at the legislative meeting on June 3rd, staff will request that the mayor and council adopt ordinance 2024-R05 regarding multifamily license fee modifications. This is a continuation of a discussion that we had on April 1st and May 6th legislative meetings to ensure that our neighborhood services department remains financially sustainable. We've done an analysis of multifamily rental license fees from jurisdictions in neighboring municipalities, and we found that we were starting to become much lower than many of our peers. And in order to try to both achieve that financial sustainability and find a balance in our license fee, we are suggesting that we increase our our multifamily rental license fees from $115 per unit annually to $125 per unit annually. And this would put us more in line with the middle of the median, I guess, of what other jurisdictions in our area are doing. I'm happy to answer any questions about this proposal.
Thank you, Director Chilton. Are there any questions or comments from the council about the content of ordinance 2024-OR-05? Looks pretty quiet. Any comments, public comments or questions? Okay, I think we're ready to approve and adopt. Next item on the agenda is minutes. Please review the minutes and make sure that they are as accurate, they match your memory as best they can. That brings us to new business. Are there any items of new business? Are there any items of unfinished business? It's not a formal meeting, so we are adjourned if there's nothing else to discuss. Thank you all very much.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.
Night, everyone.
You take care.